Oh boy, this is going to be an interesting intro. My wife is actually sleeping in the room, so I can't use that. I don't want to kick her out. My sister, I just locked her in her room. I was like, I need the living room. Let me work this shit out. Welcome to the YouTube channel. This is No Credits Needed. This is going to be season 4, episode 4. And if you're new here, this is a podcast where I interview a bunch of different creative people and we talk about their creative process, what got them to where they are today, their inspirations, their work habits, stuff like that. And we try to learn a little bit from them and see if we can apply it to our own life as well. If you're a returning viewer, thank you for coming back. I really appreciate it. And I just want to let you guys in on like a little bit of what's happening. It's been a busy week. I don't think I mentioned it on the podcast before, but I am actually working on a short film with a couple of my friends. I'm the first assistant director, which is kind of the person that's in charge of keeping everything on track. So there's a lot of paperwork involved, and I've just been really busy with that, busy with school. I usually like to record these video introductions like on Monday. I edit them on Tuesday, get everything ready on Wednesday, and then put stuff up on Thursday. But today is Wednesday, and tomorrow is Thursday, and I have to do all of this in one day, and I'm excited and I'm nervous, but it's going to happen and we're going to do it. We're going to get through it and it's okay. Before we get into who's the guest for today, I just want to remind you guys, please check out the website, nocreditsneeded.com. That's where you can keep up to date with what's going on. You can see the most recent audio only version of the podcast. You can see the video version of the podcast. And I also encourage you to follow us on Instagram. It's where we're the most active. And so you can see like the behind the scenes, what episodes are coming up, just reminders here and there. You can interact with the podcast. You can DM us. You can be in the loop. Like I said, check out the website, check out our Instagram. You'll see everything you need to know right there. With all that being said, I want to get into who the guest is for today, and his name is László. Boy, oh boy, did I learn a lot from László. This was a really interesting conversation. It really felt kind of like the I don't know what it was about it, but it really felt like old school, like season 1 of the podcast. We were just having fun and we were just talking about art, talking about creativity. He's a really cool guy. The reason that he reached out, the reason that he's on the podcast is because he's a musician. He just released an EP called Popular Sci-Fi Concepts. And it's exactly what it sounds like. It's songs about sci-fi. I would consider it like rock, alt rock. He talks about the songs, how he went on to make them. Something really interesting that I found out while interviewing him is that there's parts of the songs that he actually sourced out to people on Fiverr. When he needed something that he couldn't do, he would outsource it and he'd incorporate it into his music. And he's a very creative guy. He's very productive. We talk about his like work schedule, like how he keeps on track of it. Like he has kids too, and he has a full time job, and he made time to make this EP. And we kind of talk about that. He kind of breaks down what he needed to do in order to get the stuff done. And like I said, we just talk about art for a good portion of this. We talk about the music that he likes. We get into a lot of nerdy stuff. So if that's something that you're into, you're gonna really enjoy this episode. So without any further ado, I just want to introduce you guys to Laszlo. First of all, Laszlo, thank you for being on. Like I was telling you right before recording, I've been listening to your EP for a couple repetitions now in my car, and actually, I was listening to it right before we started this interview. So I have a lot of questions.
Thank you
How are you
very
doing
much.
today?
I'm doing fine. How about you?
I'm doing great. You're the first interview of the day. It's a great way to get it started.
Uh,
So just so the listeners know, you're in a completely different time zone right now, right? You're in Hungary, so this is
yeah.
this is the first for me, which is exciting.
Yeah, I live in Eastern Europe, Hungary, and it is nighttime for me. So I could say last interview for today, but I didn't have too much interviews today, but I was working. So I hope that counts.
Well, that's a good segue because like I found you on Reddit. I believe you reached out to me after I posted something
Yes.
on there. And some of the information you gave me, you said I'm a 39-year-old software tester. Is that I think you reached out maybe a couple months ago. Is that still what you're working on?
Yes. And I plan to test softwares in the upcoming 20 years until the bots and the robots are taking over the world and trying to destroy us, which sometimes I feel. But
Yeah.
until then, I hope I can test softwares on and on.
See, for now, I mean, they're not the ones trying to destroy us. It's more the CEOs of the world trying to destroy us and get our info. But I mean, we can get into because there's a lot of that talk in your EP as well. I mean, which is a good segue because because I was wondering like how do you go from being a software tester to then doing because for everyone listening, the EP that you made is a sci-fi concept album, basically. And there's a lot of talk there about robots, about mad professor stealing your data, and it's really cool. It's a really cool listen. So I'm gonna link it in the description for anyone that wants to go ahead and listen to that before the interview.
Thank you.
Um, how did you get into writing and recording and producing your EP?
Yeah, so besides working all day, I'm also, well, now stay at home dad since this COVID 2 years,
Hmm.
and I have two children. So besides my daily life, music is kind of a therapy for me, and basically because just the fan factor.
Hmm.
So in 2019, I asked my friends to write songs with me about, well, popular science fiction cliches, actually, what you can see in the sci fi movies or books repeating again and again, like time travel or mad professor or
Yeah.
robots and on and on. So
Hmm.
we came up with these songs, we put them together. Well, my friends have written the lyrics,
Hmm.
and I made the music and production.
Got it. So it's a group effort then, between you and your friends.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly.
So they wrote the lyrics and you produced it, and it's your voice, correct? In the
It's my
songs.
voice, and I'm playing the guitar, and I use the garage band drum sounds.
Hmm.
And in certain cases, I hired some people from Fiverr to do some violin or
Oh, that's cool.
saxophone to have some live something in the music,
Hmm.
not just me playing the guitar. But yeah, the production was almost entirely by me.
That's pretty cool. And is this just like is like a hobby you had and decided to, might as well record it, produce it, and put it online for people to listen to? Like, have you been like, had you made projects before, and this is the first one you make public?
I also have Hungarian projects, so
Hmm.
this counts as my first English project.
Ah, okay.
And this is one I can send around the world and show it to people, and they can understand the lyrics.
Hmm.
So I use my previous experiences for mixing and mastering and recording and again playing the guitar.
Hmm.
I'm playing acoustic guitars, and I did some tricks and some distortion to make them sound electric, but
Mm.
they are acoustic.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So like there's like so many different things to get into here because first of all you're working full time and then on top of that you said you were working from home, right?
Yes,
And then you have your two kids. So it's not only being a dad, but you're being a dad at the same time while you're working like in the same area. And then on top of this, as this was all going on, you found the time to make the EP. How'd you
yeah.
do that? Like stay up until 4 in the morning when the kids were asleep, or?
Sometimes I do that, but there is a book I can recommend to
Mhm.
everyone. It's called How to Control Your Life.
Mm,
It's written by Ellen Lacane, and you can find it on Amazon. And it was bought like a few million times.
mm,
It was written in the 90s, so it's about time management, but expressing that you cannot really manage time because you just have your time and that's it. But how you use it and how do you build up your goals and the actions towards your goals.
mhm,
These are the most important things. So I'm using these techniques from this book. This book is from the 90s, so there are some methods that might be oldish, I guess, like
mhm.
using a printed calendar. I'm not using a printed calendar. Some people, I guess, still do, but I'm not.
Yeah.
But aside of that, there are pretty useful things. So, like waking up very early. Sometimes I wake up at 5 ish, 5 a.m.,
Mhm,
and do some things until 6, and then switching to my dad mode and preparing breakfast and starting the day for everybody. So that 1 hour alone or one and a half hours
Mm-hmm.
that could really help toward your goals. So this book calls this horizontal scheduling. So if you schedule one piece of time every day horizontally, like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and so on,
Ah, okay.
you can gain some time when you can go toward your goal. It can be language learning, or in my profession, I had to do some exams,
Mm-hmm.
AAWS exams for
Mm-hmm.
about this new Amazon cloud, and I just knew that in my daytime I cannot find 2 hours when I can be alone. Children are coming in, colleagues are asking questions from me, so I decided to do it very early morning, like from 4 a.m. to 6 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
And again it was perfect. Okay, I was sleepy. I had to wake up earlier, to drink some coffee, and to be able to concentrate on the exam, because these exams, I don't know whether you had any of these
Mm.
are remote exams. So if something happens in the room with your camera on, if something happens, the exam is over.
Ah.
So if somebody is coming in and asking something, it can be anything.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I am not an English speaker, so my family is neither. So
Mm-hmm.
if they ask something, the exam is over. So at the beginning of the exam, you have to turn your camera around, show the walls, the ceiling, the table.
Mm-hmm.
You have to show your ID in the camera and your driver's license. And during these 2 hours, I was doing with my hands something like this, just thinking and
Uh-huh.
putting my hands on my forehead.
Mm-hmm.
And after a minute, the message came that please put your hands away.
Oh,
So it was
that
strict.
intense, huh?
It was strict, and of course they were paying attention. I had to pay attention. So
Mm-hmm.
there was no other better time to do
Yeah.
this than in the morning. And I didn't accept any postman, any carrier, my family, no neighbors, nobody.
Mm-hmm.
So this is one technique I can recommend to everyone. This is horizontal scheduling.
That's a really good way to put it because I feel like I feel like a lot of us we want to get that technique started, and maybe even if we don't know the name to it, like horizontal scheduling, like what you were talking about. Like for example, I've been trying to put a screenplay together for a short film, and I find myself feeling like after a certain time in the day, I just don't have the creativity in me left to do it. Like I can respond to emails, I can schedule, I can do all those things, but to sit down and create an imaginary dialogue, or like in your case, maybe a melody or a lyric or whatever that is, um, I find myself if I wake up and before anything else, just write a page, and I can write a page of a screenplay and then go back to it at 3 p.m. with my analytical brain and kind of clean it up a little bit. But I find like my creative brain is wide awake way before I am. I don't know if that's why you were scheduling stuff at 4 or 5 in the morning, because even like you said, you were might have been sleepy, but I feel like I don't know. There's a lot of theories about it. I feel like it has to do with you're coming right out of your dreams, and your brain is still kind of like in that state where it's just ideas are kind of flowing. I want to know like what your take is on that, or did you just schedule it at 4 because you're like it's the only time that I have? Was there?
This was the only time for me, the best one. I could do that in the time in the night, but I would wake up the neighbors and also my children, so I cannot play the guitar in the night. Maybe you
Hmm.
could write. Technically, you could write a page
Yeah.
in the night, but again, if you're sleepy or you're not don't feel creative, then it's not an option. May I ask what the film will be about, or this movie?
Yeah, it's a more autobiographical film. I used to be, or I guess I technically still am a stand-up comedian, but once the pandemic hit, I kind of just stopped doing that. So I started going to school for filmmaking. But before I did all that, I was a teacher as a middle school science school teacher, and I was doing stand-up at the same time. And one of my biggest fears was having my students find my stand-up videos online and then having to go through that whole thing. And so I'm trying to write a short film about a teacher that precisely that happens to them, where they're doing stand-up and they get found out. Something that didn't happen to me, but it was like one of my biggest fears. So I feel like I can write from like semi experience of that. So that's kind of what I'm going on about.
Sounds fun.
It is fun. It's also terrifying to think that because like when I was a teacher, I was like, I hope no one ever finds these videos. And but it's fun to kind of explore that potential nightmare of a problem. But it's like going back to what you were saying, like writing at 4 5 in the morning. I don't get up that early, but maybe like 7 or 8 is like the time for me, and it's very productive, and it's a game changer, honestly. Like sometimes at first I felt like I wasn't being productive because I was only doing 1 to an hour and a half a day, but then I realized it's way more than I would have been doing before, so might as well give myself praise for doing those small tiny baby steps because eventually it's going to become something bigger.
Did you try the method Stephen King advised, namely writing a lot? Just
Hmm.
write, whatever pops in your head and not caring about the quality. And later on, going back to the manuscript,
Hmm.
pulling out half of the writing you did.
I didn't know Stephen King gave that advice, but I feel like I kind of
Maybe.
stumbled onto that, because I'm more of a so my background is I studied physics, and so I have a very trained analytical brain, and it's the creative brain that it needs a little bit more exercise for me. So a lot of the times, I'll start writing, and I'll be like, "Wait, this isn't perfect. He's not saying exactly what he needs to say." But then I have to like shake it off. And sometimes in the morning, I'll just write, and then this person says blah, 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 or something like this. And then someone else comes along, and it's just more description. And then I'll come back later with the right words and stuff to do it. So I feel like I did stumble on that technique, and it has worked a lot.
And
Is that something
sometimes,
you used?
yeah, I did. And I can recall a few examples in rock history where the words
Hmm.
just blah 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 and other not quite well polished lyrics
Uh huh.
are just success.
Yeah, and I mean, there's Beatles lyrics that are na 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 na. It's just like okay, well, it's just a melody, but like people dig it. They're into it. So
Yeah.
it's very much a feeling sometimes with the creative stuff. And
Are you a Beatles fan?
I am a Beatles fan. Yeah. Did you get to watch the documentary that they put out recently?
I just wanted to ask you that. I think it's amazing. Amazing for Beatles fans, not
Hmm.
for everybody. I was trying to watch it with my kids, and
Oh.
they were so bored after a while. Yeah, 6 hours is too long, and
Yeah.
there are not too much cuts, and
Hmm.
it's kind of linear. But for Beatles fans, it's amazing. I think it's amazing.
Yeah, so I feel like as a Beatles fan and then also just as a creative person, you get to see that they were just human beings. Like they would show up to a day, be like, we have no fucking idea what we're doing today. We got this concert in 2 weeks. We have two songs. What the fuck are we doing? And it's just like, oh, everyone goes through that. It's not like you like from the outside looking in, you see their like genius album like once every year for 10 years, right? And then like, oh, it's just they're the Beatles. They get to write whatever they want. And then you look into this and they're fighting. Like it's I mean, obviously you don't want to see people fighting, but you get a sense of like they're human, right? And it does give you like some sort of reassurance and be like, oh, I I could do that potentially, or I could get together with some friends, or I could get together with myself and work stuff out. I feel like what I learned from those documentaries was just like the hard work that went into it, the passion that went into it.
Yeah, and there's those processes when they're going through a song and the lyrics completely changes from the original idea,
Hmm.
and and how it transforms and how the others add to their own talent and productivity. Well, it's amazing.
I think the part that got to me, I felt chills was I think it was the first week, and then Paul comes in, they're all kind of like scattered. I think it was only Paul and Ringo that were in early, And then in the subtitles, they're just like, when Paul doesn't know this, but he's about to write the riff to their new best single, and you just see him kind of like he's just jamming out. He's just getting
Yeah,
ideas out there, and he's not saying words. He's just mumbling
yeah,
nonsense, but you can kind of hear it get back starting to form little by little, and that gives you chills because like it said in the subtitles, he didn't know, and a lot of times as creative people ourselves, we don't know if we're writing something that's going to potentially be really good for us or uh, good for our craft.
yeah. And they are playing it like 11 times or even more throughout those 6 hours again and again. And you can
Hmm.
hear how it transforms. It's amazing.
It is, yeah, and I don't know if you saw any interviews with the director, the person that got to cut everything together. He's the same director from the Lord of the Rings movies,
Yeah,
so obviously he's a fan of putting really long uh, episodes out. But
yeah,
I think he said he had a lot more footage to go through as well, and it's just incredible to have that privilege to be able to see all that stuff.
yeah. Again, for every Beatles fan, you just have to watch it.
How old are your kids, by the way? You said you try to get them to watch it with you.
Oh, yeah, 7 and 10.
7 and 10.
And
Are they aware of the Beatles?
not really. I try to show them stuff.
Uh huh.
And watching the documentary, I try to explain that this is John Paul, Ringo, and this is Yoko Ono, and how they are related, and what is the
Hmm.
theory behind their breakup and stuff like that. And they are half interested, half not. Maybe later.
It's
We'll
so cool
see.
because like I mean I obviously wasn't born when the Beatles were going through their height of their fame, but when I first discovered them, I feel like I kind of grew up with them because I would listen to their first two albums because those are the ones that I understood. I didn't really care about Abbey Road or Sergeant Pepper just yet because I was too young to really appreciate that. They seemed kind of boring and too out there for me. And then as I grew older, I was just like I went to the next two albums, and then now that I'm old enough to like go back and listen to I Want to Hold Your Hand all the way to Let It Be, it's so cool to see that because I feel like I did grow up with them in a way, and I feel like so many
Ah,
generations like
uh-huh.
they've raised a lot of generations of people that have just been able to go back and listen to their music over and over and over again. And I think this is what this documentary might do for a lot of people as well.
I have to ask whether you have listened to Norwegian Wood,
I have, yeah.
and I don't know whether you know there is a novel called Norwegian Wood in
Huh?
Japan.
I did not know
So
that.
that there is this famous author Murakami Haruki
Mhm.
from Japan,
Mhm.
and he is expected to win the Nobel Prize every year. So if you open up a web page where they are making odds about the who will win the Nobel Prize, the
Mhm.
literature Nobel Prize, he is in the finish line every year because he's making so popular but so deep novels
Mm.
that I think he's a genius. And he wrote a novel called Norwegian Wood, and it 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 relates to this Beatles song.
Mm.
So if
Okay.
somebody doesn't know that Norwegian wood is a kind of hardwood floor, so it's a product called Norwegian wood. This is the name of the product,
Uh-huh.
and maybe John Lennon or Paul is singing in the song that he goes up to a girl, and well, things don't really turn out well.
Mhm.
So what is he seeing? This Norwegian wood. But as some people explain it, and at the end, this Norwegian wood coats fire and everything
Mhm.
is burning down. But some people say that it's not really about fire, but more about this nervous person who is
Mhm.
not getting any luck with this lady,
Yeah.
just getting his pressure in his own hands.
Yeah.
I'm speaking figuratively here.
Uh-huh.
So trying to release the stress, in his own way, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. I didn't know that story behind that, but that's interesting. Now I'm
And
gonna now when I listen to it, I'm gonna listen to it in a different way.
yeah,
But again,
you could.
that was one of those songs that like as a kid you're just like, oh, this doesn't feel like pop music to me. I'm not gonna listen to
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
And then
because
later on, you kind of grow to appreciate it.
yeah, the lyrics is more important in that case than the music.
Your yeah. Phone is at 80%.
And
Oh, sorry about that.
no problem.
Yeah, like I really enjoyed watching that, and it's always cool to see artists do their thing. Hopefully, one day your kids will appreciate it. I'm sure they will, because
Yeah,
now with the internet, they'll be able to go back and see everything. Which brings me to one of the questions that I had on here. Like, have they listened to your music?
some of them. Yeah, some of them. I mean, some of
Um,
this music, some of the songs. Yeah.
to your to the new one, the All the Round Objects band, or the Hungarian
No,
projects that you have?
the Hungarian, and sometimes I do turn contemporary poems to songs,
Okay.
and they have definitely listened to those. And we have written a song together with my children,
Oh, that's so cool.
and it's about children stuff like
Mm-hmm.
being annoyed and being hungry. And it was fun. Nobody listens to it. It's just my children singing,
Mm-hmm.
but it was so fun to do it in a vacation. So
So those recordings are just for you guys. You haven't published them anywhere?
I have published it for them to see the process,
Uh-huh.
and if they want to show it for somebody, they can just check it on Spotify or wherever.
Got it.
So it's available, but it's just children stuff.
That's pretty cool because it's cool to have for them to grow up singing the for them to grow up seeing the creative process and how it
Yeah,
evolves. Because it's a lesson in hard work as well. It's a good lesson to learn as a kid.
yeah, they have good memories about that, and
Mm.
I do too.
And then you have the recording that just lasts forever, so you can
Yeah,
go back and listen to that whenever you want, which I'm
yeah,
sure is pretty cool. It's an interesting thing about recording and the internet is not like a painting that has to be preserved or like redone every couple decades or anything like that. Things that we record
oh,
and put online, for the most part, you can just leave them untouched and they exist foreseeable. Like you said, you're going to be working for the robots for the foreseeable future, right? So this is all going to be online forever.
we hope
And
so.
it's an interesting thing to think about.
But it's interesting how the context changes. So one of my other hobbies is to listen to old time radio,
Hmm.
and you can achieve it or find it on the internet basically without any copyright issues because they are so old. They are out of copyright now.
Hmm.
And there are some very good radio shows like science fiction stuff, even like Twilight Zone, but I like another one, X minus one. And
Mm.
it's so interesting to listen to the advertisement between these episodes or in the middle of the episode because it's about like American bonds. You should buy American bonds. And it's over since like 15 years now, right?
Hmm.
That kind of bond. And
Yeah.
the war is over. The products have changed, and it's so good to listen to those old advertisements.
Hmm.
It has a vintage feeling. I
Like a
really like that.
vintage nostalgic feeling, and you also get to
Yeah,
like see like how far we've come. Like you're talking about old advertisements. There's a collection of them on YouTube and anywhere you can find them, where you see these completely bizarro products that they were labeling as like this is the future, but here
yeah,
we are putting goggles on our head and be like this is perfectly normal, and we make fun of those people for for doing what they did 20 years ago. But I'm just like, hold on guys, wait a couple of decades and we're going to be talking the same shit about us.
yeah. I love those even pictures on the Instagram and
Hmm.
advertisement collections. They are so fun to check. Yeah,
It is, yeah. It's cool to see how crazy we are as human beings. Which I mean, I feel you kind of touched on this a little bit, but I was gonna ask like why did you choose specifically a sci-fi subject for this EP? I can tell you have an affinity for it, Was it? Did you have a couple options, or you just had this in your brain?
I had this in my brain because I read and watch a lot of science fiction stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I think I started it with a book I got from my grandfather, and it contains short sci fi stories from Frederick Pohl, Isaac Asimov, and
Mm-hmm.
other classic authors. And it was so great to read it. And since then, I'm reading 10 to 20 sci fi books a year
Mm-hmm.
and watch again dozens of movies. And my wife loves sci-fi as well.
Mm-hmm.
So
It's
it's
just
so
part of
fun
your
for
life.
us. Yeah. So I
Well, and
decided why not
uh,
write a song or a few songs about it.
I mean, and on top of that, you work as with software all the time, so that's a part of your life as well.
Yeah.
I was gonna say like I feel like the EP has an interesting mix of sci-fi cliches like the album says, but there's also I mean on top of being cliches, some of them are actually really like I feel they have some comedy in it. Some of them have some deep meanings in it. Like the one that gets me all the time is No Robots. It's just it's reminiscent of I was talking to my sister about this. We were listening to Motley Crue, and Motley Crue has like really heavy rock songs. And then I show my sister one of the ballads that they have in their album, and she's like, "Well, this is a really like weird twist." I was like, "Well, in the '80s, every rock album had like one ballad at least, or one every rock band had at least one ballad. Even like Guns N' Roses had it."
Yeah.
And I feel like that's the one in your EP. Like all the other songs are like a little bit darker and deeper, and this one feels kind of like a love song in a way.
It
And
is. It
it's
is actually.
yeah, well, I mean, you're talking about no robots and no one like you and all these things. It's really cool to see, um, and I can kind of see like more or less where now that I know it's a group project, I know maybe people got inspiration from different parts, but it definitely has the vibe of just like something like that, like a more of a hard rock, maybe underground punk scene type of music.
So about that song, you have to know that I was watching the Avengers movies, and and Scarlett Johansson was so beautiful in them.
Uh huh.
And after a while, the Black Widow came out, and again, I was expecting it so much.
Mm-hmm.
And after 1 year of quarantine, that was the first movie we could go out to
Mm.
with my wife, and that added so much to the enjoyment, just being out in the open. We had masks maybe, but
Yeah.
again, it was just good to be among people. And I was watching Scarlett on the screen, and I decided I had to write a song about her. So this is why I sing "No One, No Robots, Only You," who
Uh
looks
huh.
like Scarlett.
Ah, okay. I got it. What's so interesting is like so many coincidences because I was showing that music to my sister, and like I said, I've been listening to your EP in the car, and I kind of showed her a few songs. I was like, "Oh, this is my 'cause No Robots is my favorite one." I'm kind of a sucker for the
Thank you.
ballads on the albums. Um and she's a Marvel fan, so now I'm going to tell her
Oh,
how it was inspired.
and maybe she will recognize the last lines because you look like Scarlett. You look like Scarlett.
See, I didn't know what that meant, but now that you say it's pretty spelled out, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, since we're talking about the EP and kind of like more or less what it sounds like, did you grow up listening to like kind of like punk rock, or do you still listen to that type of music? Is that like the main
Uh,
inspiration? Because that's kind of like what I get from it.
yeah, in high school, I find out about Nirvana and Kurt
Mm,
Cobain. And at the end of high school, I found out that his tragic fate, and that turned me to grunge music completely. And since then, I'm listening to all kinds of post-grunge stuff like Matchbox 20,
hmm
Nickelback. Many people hate Nickelback, but I kind of love them.
I think, you know, people like to hate them, but I feel like a lot of people do like them and they just don't say anything, myself included.
And Oasis and other
Hmm.
kind of rock bands, and even in Hungary here. So what I would like to recommend to everyone when the quarantine is over, we are waiting for this since 2 years, right?
Yeah.
But if you can, there is a gig series all around the world. It started from London, I guess. It's called So Far. So songs from a room. And the
Okay.
abbreviation is So Far. You
Hmm.
can everyone can find it online, and it has gigs in cities all over the world. And it means that they invite a limited amount of people, like 50 people,
Hmm.
into a room. It can be a
Mm,
library or a restaurant or a movie theater, and the place is secret, and also the musicians or the bands are secret. You
mm,
find it 2 hours before the gig, so you have 2 hours to get there in your city, so it shouldn't be a too big problem.
yeah.
Somewhere in the city center, usually, and you find out who the performers are only there when they are entering the room,
Mm,
and the organizers ask you to turn your cell phones off and just concentrate on the music.
mm,
And you can find so great surprises like this. They are organizing different kind of music, they are inviting guests from other towns or even other countries,
mm,
or performers can connect this to their trip around the world, or just tours. If they have a free night, they can schedule something with the local sofa organizers.
mhm.
And you can find rock music like this, or electronic music, or singer songwriter stuff. It's so great.
Have you attended one of these?
I have attended like 10ish.
Oh, wow. That's pretty
They,
cool.
they are organizing, or, or had organized
Mhm,
before COVID
mhm.
in my town. But again, they are doing everywhere in the United States, in United Kingdom, Australia, everywhere.
That's really cool to think about because that part of what makes that cool is just you feel like you're in on something kind of secret, and that makes it feel a
And
lot cooler, I think.
it directs your concentration on the songs so much. These places don't really have a venue or a bar, so usually it's a bring your own beer event,
Mhm,
and you can bring whatever you want. You can sit however you want or wherever you want, on a desk or a table or down on the floor, and just listen to this performance, who can be
mhm,
no ones or even famous
mm.
famous performers, and they are mixing them together. So it's very interesting, very intimate.
And I think the fact that they take your well, they don't take your phone away, but they tell you to turn your phone off, and I mean that. I mean, I think part of it is like preventing people from like maybe live streaming it or announcing it to the world. But the other part, or maybe a side effect of that, is you're just in the moment because uh, I've, I've written I've written jokes about just not being able to be in the moment, and I feel like it's because of my phone. That reminds me of a time that my wife and I went to go see Liam Gallagher perform in LA, and there was a couple people in front of us, and they were just on their phone the whole time, not even recording. They were just on
Oh,
their phone,
with Liam
and then
Gallagher. Oh my God,
we were
my
having the time of our
dream
lives.
performer.
Yeah, the great performer, and they were just on their phone, their whole time. To each their own. It's not going to ruin my concert, right? And then Liam Gallagher performs Wonderwall. They get up,
Oh,
sing it, record it, and it's not even the last song of the night. He goes on to perform a couple more, but they leave. They were just waiting for
oh,
that one song to record it and then peace out. And what you were telling me
oh.
about them telling you to turn off your phone kind of reminds me of that moment because I was I was very much in the moment. I was very much enjoying it, and I feel like taking that option away from people, it just allows you, even if you don't know the artist, even if you don't know the songs, to just enjoy it in the moment.
If I could go to a Liam Gallagher gig, I would even throw my phone away for good. Or a Noel Gallagher gig, whatever.
Ye-
Which one comes to my town?
Yeah, I mean, I got lucky because I think they were touring within like a year of each other. I think
Ah,
Liam put out his solo album the same year that Noel put out one of his albums, and we got to see. I think we got to see Noel first, and then for
oh,
Liam, we didn't really have that much money yet. We were on a budget, and I told my wife, I was like, I don't know if I feel comfortable spending this money to go there, and she kind of just convinced me. She's like, we can put it on a credit card. We'll be fine. We'll pay it off later. You're not going to regret going to go see this guy. And she was right. A couple weeks later, we got back on our feet, paid it off, and it was fine. But yeah,
oh,
one of my, uh, one of my dreams is to be able to see Oasis live. Obviously, not going to
oh! I
happen.
wanted to ask this. Do you think there will be an Oasis gig sometimes in the
Judging
future?
from the fact that they don't talk to each other and they haven't talked to each other for years and years, I don't think so. My hope is someday. Um, I don't know if you've listened to Liam's songs. I think he has one that's called I think it's called One of Us, and it very much seems like he's talking to Noel and trying to reconcile.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
as a fan, we can only hope.
My theory that this is a huge, huge hustle what we are in. So these guys prepared everything into the future
Uh-huh.
for decades, and they have a pretty good plan when they will join again, like in
Hmm.
2030 or something.
Well, if they ever do, I'm sure they would sell out whatever venue they go to.
Yeah.
Because one of we're talking about music documentaries. I don't know if you ever watched Supersonic.
I
Um,
wanted to, but I couldn't find it anywhere, at any streaming services.
oh, maybe it's worth another look. I feel like I watched it on Hulu. I can't remember where I watched it.
Oh, oh, I will
Um,
try it again. Thank you.
Very good documentary, and it's like a really incredible insight into their lives, and you just get chills watching them. 3 4 years into their career, selling out huge
Hmm.
stadiums, and it's so cool to see that. I mean, they were obviously uh like any good rock band had a lot of drama and a lot of things going on, but it's a
Hmm.
really good watch if you have a chance to watch it.
I will try. Thank you.
It's the life of a rock star seems interesting.
Oh,
Not
yeah.
enjoyable, interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting to watch from the outside.
Yeah, yeah. I watched a Netflix episode on them. There is a show called This Is Pop,
Mm-hmm.
and there is an episode about, oh, what is that called? Britpop,
Mm-hmm.
which is not really pop, but they
Yeah.
explain everything, how the name was found out, and the whole episode about Blur and Oasis. It's not so deep as you
Mm-hmm.
mentioned about Supersonic, but it's a good episode. I can
That
recommend.
I did have a chance to watch that.
Ah,
Because you again, I was in I think I might have been a little kid when they were, doing their thing, but uh, you read about these rivalries that different bands have, talking as far back about the Stones and the Beatles, or the Beatles and the Beach Boys, and then Blur and Oasis was a huge one. It's really interesting to see all that stuff. Like I said, from the outside looking in, because for that to be my life, I feel like would be a little too chaotic. But from the outside looking in, as a fan, that looks cool. Uh, that
can
kind of
I
brings
ask?
me in.
Yeah,
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I wanted to ask a personal question.
Yes.
So I have read this book called Snoop. It's about what kind of stuff do you have at your workplace or
Hmm.
at home, what
Hmm.
others can see, and what does
Hmm.
it tell about you? And there is a yellowish picture behind you. It looks like in this low resolution. Yeah,
Hmm.
exactly. In
Hmm.
this low resolution, it looks like an album cover, but maybe it's not. It's like a head.
It's a painting that my wife made as a gift for me. It's supposed to be.
Oh,
It's the profile of Bob Dylan, and it
oh,
says "Don't think twice."
Do you like Bob Dylan? And that's
I
why?
do like Bob Dylan. Yeah, I not as much of a fan as Bob Dylan as Oasis or the Beatles. So I listen to a lot of his earlier stuff, and I mean that song's referencing "Don't Think Twice, It's All Right," um, which is also the title of a movie that I really like, a comedy movie talking about going for your dreams. Don't think twice and just do it.
Uh, and do you agree with Bob Dylan receiving the Nobel Prize, the
uh,
Literature Nobel Prize?
I'm going to say I don't have enough information to answer that question because honestly, I haven't read what he was awarded for. Um, no, I don't know. I think it was what, maybe like 5 years ago when that
Something like
happened.
that.
Yeah. Did you have a chance to read what he was awarded the Nobel Prize for?
I understand they don't give it for specific books anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It was in time of Hemingway for The Old Man and the Sea, but
Mm,
now since 10 years or 20 years they give it for what they have done in their lives.
mm.
So maybe he received it because of his lyrics, as I understand.
I understood that he had written some sort of poem or literature before that, so
Oh,
I don't know.
really?
I might
Oh,
be misunderstanding it, but if it's for his lyrics, I mean, I'm all for it. I have the albums that I listen to the most are like the first couple ones.
uh-huh.
But he, like, a lot of people like to think Bob Dylan. A lot of people like to say Bob Dylan is not the greatest singer in the world, which I agree. But he's a really good lyricist.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
but again, we're talking about music and the Beatles not writing lyrics, just singing random words. If you feel what Bob Dylan's feeling, you don't have to think he's a good singer. But like if you feel emotional when you're listening to his songs, that's I feel like that's what matters a lot.
And
One of my biggest regrets was I got to go to, I don't know if you were aware of, there was a show called Desert Trip, in California maybe about 5 years ago, and it was. Are you familiar with the Coachella Music Festival?
yes.
Is in the same valley, same organizers, but they put together Bob Dylan, Paul McCartney,
Oh,
Neil Young,
oh,
uh, the guitarist from Pink Floyd. What's his name? I forgot his name. There was the Rolling Stones,
uh-huh.
and we got to see. It was six people total, over three
Oh,
weekends, and we
uh-huh.
were late the first weekend, so I didn't get to see Bob Dylan. He was
Oh,
singing.
uh-huh.
He was singing
Uh-huh.
while I was parking the car.
Oh,
I got to see all those other people, but Bob Dylan, I was like, ah, damn it, I missed it.
it's not the same experience, but maybe I can connect it to. So, at one of my jobs, I was invited to Texas, Austin,
Hmm.
and on that weekend, Austin has a Formula One race.
Hmm.
How do you call it? A race, a place, or a
Racetrack.
sorry, racetrack? Thank you.
Uh-huh.
And to make the race more popular, they invited Taylor Swift. So at that weekend, my plane took off 1 hour before her gig started. So I was
Mm.
there in Boston. Taylor Swift was there. Of course, she didn't know about me, but the airport at Austin is besides this racetrack. So
Oh.
all the drive-ins and all the roads were full of cars. Everybody
Hmm.
wanted to go to the racetrack. There were other gigs at that afternoon, of course, but she was the main star. And of course, there was a race, a normal one.
Hmm.
So we had to start 1 hour earlier than usual to get to the plane. And
Hmm.
because of this departure time, we didn't even have the chance to go to this gig.
Man, that sucks. And you were right next door, you say, huh?
Pardon?
Basically.
Pardon?
You said the airport was right next to the racetrack, basically.
Exactly. Exactly.
Bummer. Yeah, I mean, it happens, and hopefully one day I'll get to see Bob Dylan, but I don't think it'll happen. I feel like you might be able to see Taylor Swift in your lifetime, so It'll be all right.
I'm not so sure. Not so sure. Maybe Dua Lipa because there is a festival every year, every summer in Hungary, and she's invited.
That's
So
good. Yeah, it's I mean, I feel like it happens a lot here in the United States where just what we get fed from the media and all our festivals and stuff, it feels like, oh, this is the only place where people come and perform. But it's, I mean, they spend, 95% of their life on tour most of the time. And
yeah.
they just go everywhere. I was gonna ask you, like, what's the nearest big town where you guys have concerts and stuff like that? Because I mean, for me, it's LA. That's about an hour away. Um,
So
are you? Do you
so
guys have?
our capital, Budapest,
Hmm.
has a lot of gigs, and it is considered to be cheap. So a lot of movies are produced here in Hungary. A lot
Mm,
of Hollywood movies. So I don't know whether you are a Die Hard fan, but one of the Die Hard movies was
hmm.
created here.
Ah, I didn't know that. That's
So
cool.
there is a scene when Bruce Willis gets out of a car
Hmm.
and a guy, a nobody, comes from behind with another car. So Bruce Willis blocks the way. So this guy gets out and says, "Well, why are you blocking the way?" So Bruce Willis just hits him out,
Hmm.
and he's a famous Hungarian actor.
Oh, oh, that's
it's
cool. That's a
it's
cool
fun
piece of.
watching. I
That's cool
think
to.
a lot of Hungarian actors, or even me, would
Mhm.
pay to be hit out by Bruce Willis.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, just to share the screen with Bruce Willis in an action movie seems like a cool thing to do.
Yeah.
Oh
Or
man. I was gonna say.
yeah, please go ahead.
No, no, you go ahead.
They created other movies here like The Witcher or
Mm,
I Spy or dozens of movies because this place is kind of cheap. So they just organize everything. They come here, do a lot of post production work,
hmm.
computers and CGI and stuff, and they go back.
Yeah, like now that I'm learning, filmmaking, as a film watcher, you think that if a movie is set in New York City, they filmed it in New York City, or if it's set in, X place, it's filmed there. You know,
Sometimes.
yeah, I mean, come to find out that most of the Marvel movies are filmed in Atlanta, and then they ship all the footage to somewhere in Europe to get developed or
Yeah,
to get like edited, and then they ship it back, and then back and forth. It's a whole global production, and
yeah,
it's cool to learn about all that stuff. It's teamwork, global teamwork.
yeah.
I was gonna say, Laszlo, we're nearing the end of the interview, and I've
Oh,
really enjoyed our talk together.
time
I feel like
flies.
I feel like we've been two music fans, just kind of nerding out about our experiences, which has been fun.
Yeah, I hope the listeners will like it.
I hope so too. I feel like they will. One of the last questions that I always ask our guests, and I feel like it's a good way to kind of wrap up the interview. Um, if you could, maybe go back in time, the amount of years that you'd want to go back and give yourself some advice. We've been talking about your EP, so it could be, advice in terms of music, or if you'd even like advice as a father now, giving yourself advice before that, or anything that you feel like would be useful to you and maybe someone listening. I know it's a hard question, so take your time.
Very hard, very hard question. But maybe the most important one would be everything will turn out well. So I have a lot of proof about that. My son and even my daughter was not very good at eating when they were babies. They were very, very bad eaters, like very thin, and we had to take them to the doctor a lot of times. They had nothing, so there was no illness. And now my son is eating more than me, and he's so strong. He's just 10, but he's so strong. I can hardly grip him, and I can hardly take him to wash his teeth anymore.
Hmm.
And it turned out so well. I think you have to work on things with however you can. So if you don't work on them, they won't turn out well. So I think I wasted a lot of time at my university years and even in high school. I have written some songs but didn't record them, and they were just in a notebook. I
Mm-hmm.
should have recorded them in whatever with whatever tools I had to just have something in my hand. So I think you should work on things, but without too much worrying. If you work on things with even with small steps, if you open up your screenwriting every day and just write half a page, at the end of the year it will be more than 100 pages, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you can do something with those 100 pages. And maybe it will be a movie, maybe not. But if you work on it, you will feel better because you did something and didn't you waste your time.
Mm-hmm.
And after a while, if you did this work, I hope that I can see that it will turn out well. So this is what I wish to everyone.
Yeah, and it goes back to what we were talking about, not being paralyzed by fear of not being perfect.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, because I mean,
absolutely.
it's like you said, it's easy to say like, oh, everything will be fine, but there is a certain amount of work that needs to be done. But like you said, without fear of what'll happen, you just got to keep going. I like that. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Thank you for inviting me here.
Well, Laszlo, it's been great. I hope you had a good time. I'm gonna link the Spotify link, the Apple Music link to your EP,
Thank you.
and hopefully we'll have another EP from you soon, and we'll have you back on the podcast.